I mean, it's difficult, but what I've tried to do is to put my money where it's very easy to just dismiss anything I say. So often it's in the interests of, efficiency. If you make everything over-efficient, you suck out, it seems to me, every last drop.
Forget the polite smiles and royal handshakes. This whisper has the power to rock Buckingham Palace to its core. We're talking money, old family legacy, and the never-ending tug-of-war over who really gets what in the House of Windsor. Picture this, a crisp autumn afternoon at Highgrove. The gardens glow gold, but inside the mood is far from peaceful. King Charles sits hunched over paperwork no outsider ever lays eyes on. Across from him, Camilla watches with that calm, polished face of hers, only this time, it's hiding something sharper. She's been obsessing over Charles's personal estate, the kind of wealth not tied to the crown, yet heavy with centuries of power. We're talking sprawling country properties, priceless art hidden away in private halls, jewels passed from one generation to the next. And then, bam! Camilla drops a suggestion so bold it leaves the room frozen. According to whispers from insiders, she floated the idea of steering a hefty slice of Charles's inheritance straight to her daughter, Laura Lopes, instead of letting it all pass down the traditional line to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Can you imagine the shock? And don't think this is just some wild fantasy spun by tabloids. Oh no. Sources with daily access, those who deal with Charles and Camilla's private briefings without flinching, swear this conversation happened during an intimate lunch. A lunch where Camilla, cool as ever, dared to challenge centuries of tradition in one single suggestion. It didn't land as a demand, at least not at first. Camilla wrapped it up in warm family sentiment, the kind of soft touch that makes something bold sound almost harmless. See, Laura has always been her anchor. While Camilla was being dragged through years of scandal and brutal headlines, Laura stayed in the shadows, living a quieter life surrounded by art dealings and her family tucked away in the Cotswolds. To Camilla, that loyalty and resilience deserved more than just a pat on the back. It deserved a piece of the empire itself, her vision, a bequest that bends the rules, sidesteps the rigid lines of royal succession, and rewards her daughter directly. Camilla framed it as modern thinking, a monarchy that adapts, a monarchy that doesn't just cling to the past, but embraces the blended family she and Charles fought to build over decades. In her words, it wasn't rebellion, it was unity, a way of stitching her bloodline into the royal fabric without toppling the throne itself. But inside Highgrove, the air shifted the second those words sank in. Charles listened, as he always does with Camilla, steady and calm on the outside. He nodded, fork frozen halfway to his mouth, but behind that calm facade, his mind was racing. Catherine isn't just a daughter-in-law, she's the crown's linchpin, the woman carrying the glow of public love and the quiet discipline that keeps the institution standing tall. To reroute assets meant for Catherine's line, William, their children, the golden thread of continuity the monarchy relies on, wasn't just a suggestion, it was a ripple that could shake the story they've sold to the world for generations. Insiders swear Charles's expression barely moved, but his eyes gave him away, a flicker of calculation only a man who's juggled a lifetime of storms could show. Then, as smooth as ever, he set down his utensils, took a slow sip of water, and carefully redirected the conversation to the gardens, to an upcoming charity event, anywhere but the minefield Camilla had just planted at the table. The idea doesn't vanish. It lingers in the air, heavy and dangerous, unspoken but impossible to ignore. And of course, whispers like this never stay trapped within one sunlit dining room. Palaces breathe, palaces have ears. And this one, it has more than most. By nightfall, the exchange was already slipping through the cracks, reaching a chosen few, trusted aides, a solicitor or two, and then, inevitably, Princess Anne. Anne, the no-nonsense powerhouse who's been Charles's closest confidant since childhood, back when they escaped stiff protocol by hiding out in the stables. She's the one who gets the late-night call, the kind where Charles doesn't dress things up, doesn't use the royal gloss. He lays it bare, voice low and tired. Camilla's got a point about family, he might admit. But the optics, Anne, the balance. And Anne, sharp as ever, doesn't sugarcoat a thing. She's blunt, precise, almost surgical in her response. She reminds him of the precedents, the landmines of history, the whispers that can turn into roars once the outside world gets a sniff of scandal. To her, it's not about playing favourites, it's about survival. about protecting the monarchy in an age where every move is dissected, spun, and devoured by the press and the public alike. By the time that call clicks off, the course is set in stone, no redirect. No bending centuries-old lines of inheritance. The decision is sealed with Anne's trademark steel, her unflinching approval cutting through the fog. But this isn't just bookkeeping in some royal ledger. It's a raw glimpse into the palace's hidden fault lines, where love and duty crash together like tectonic plates, threatening to split the ground beneath the crown itself. Camilla's dream of carving out a new kind of legacy slams headfirst into the iron walls of tradition Charles has vowed to protect. And the twist: Catherine isn't even in the room, yet her presence is everywhere, like a silent force reminding them that the Wales aren't just family, they're the face of the future. She and William are the golden bridge to tomorrow, the polished promise the monarchy clings to. So when Charles delivers that gentle no, the weight of it hangs heavy. This is the man who turned his entire life upside down for Camilla, and yet here he is shutting the door on her boldest ask. And how does Camilla take that? Let's just say, quiet isn't in her vocabulary, but we'll get to that firestorm soon enough. For now, what matters is this: that single, private plea just set the tone for palace policy. Behind the silk curtains and flashing cameras, the decision was already locked in place. A no disguised as calm diplomacy, but carrying the force of centuries of continuity. And here's the part that many overlook. To understand why Camilla even dared to float something so audacious, you need to see the quiet empire she's been crafting in the shadows. No glittering tiaras or showy state banquets for her inner circle. Camilla's real power has always lived behind the scenes. She thrives on loyalty, the kind that survives scandals and outlasts headlines. And at the center of that loyal world sits one constant: her daughter, Laura Lopes. Laura is the living proof of Camilla's survival instinct, her quiet embodiment of endurance. Born Laura Parker Bowles, she grew up in the shadows of her mother's most brutal years, when headlines screamed about Charles's affair and the world painted Camilla as the villain. Yet through all that noise, Laura stayed steady. She built a grounded life, marrying Harry Lopes, raising 2 children, Eliza and Lewis, and carving out a career as an art curator. She's got that Parker Bowles wit, sharp enough to light up a room, but also the uncanny ability to slip into the countryside and vanish without a ripple. Insiders whisper that Laura is the emotional core of Camilla's post-scandal world. While her brother Tom found his lane in food writing, dabbling in the edges of royal life, Laura became the one Camilla leans on for raw, unfiltered advice. They've shared holidays in Scotland, quiet suppers far from the flashbulbs, where conversation drifts from grandchildren's school dramas to the crushing weight of being forever branded the other woman in history books. So when Camilla sets her eyes on Charles's inheritance, make no mistake, it isn't simple greed. It's about securing a legacy, ensuring Laura's loyalty is etched in something permanent. Sources close to the Queen Consort whisper she's been quietly combing through estate plans for months, tapping into a circle of discreet financial advisors who deal exclusively in the high-stakes world of dynastic wealth and tangled fortunes. The target was clear: a slice carved out of Charles's personal fortune, rumoured to be worth hundreds of millions once you stack up the remnants of the Duchy of Cornwall, the inherited art collections, and sprawling estates like Bolehide and beyond. Not the crown jewels, of course, those are untouchable, but enough wealth to secure Laura's bloodline for generations. Think family trusts for her grandchildren, financial muscle for her art world career, and a safety net that would guarantee the Lopes name a permanent place in Britain's upper tiers. And why Catherine as the default rival in this tug-of-war? Not out of spite, not in a venomous sense, at least. It's simply the way the royal machine works. Catherine's position as future Queen Consort makes her the natural funnel for Charles's assets, ensuring they pass straight into William's direct line. But to Camilla, that's exactly the imbalance. William and Catherine's children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, are already wrapped in the glow of destiny, groomed under the world's spotlight. Laura's children will never touch that stage. For Camilla, this isn't greed. It's equity. Her message is loud and clear. My side matters too. And here's the kicker. This subtle push isn't new. Palace watchers have clocked it for years. Laura sliding into pews at Easter services as if she belonged. Tom and Laura's names tucked neatly into charity gala programs, appearing in just the right places at just the right times. None of it loud, none of it flashy, but deliberate, like a slow weave of inclusion, thread by thread, until her family is stitched into the royal fabric itself. But here's the sting. Camilla isn't foolish. She knows the monarchy doesn't bend for sentiment. It bends for precedent. That's why she plays her timing like a chess move. She waits until after a glowing state visit, when Charles is basking in the afterglow of family unity and global praise, then slips the idea onto the table. She frames it not as a demand but as a family matter, reminding him of the vows they made back in 2005 when they merged two fractured households into one. Charles, ever the environmentalist, might even find himself momentarily swayed by the analogy. Diversification, spreading roots wider, giving every branch of the blended tree a chance to flourish. But the hesitation creeps in fast, because he knows exactly what's waiting on the other side of this conversation. The whispers, the media vultures already circling, hungry to revive Diana's ghost at the first whiff of favoritism toward Camilla's clan. And then there's Catherine, the golden thread holding the monarchy's image together. Her unshakable grace during her cancer battle has earned her a kind of public goodwill no palace PR machine could ever manufacture. Any move that siphons wealth from her children's future into Camilla's bloodline, that wouldn't just look like favoritism, it would look like betrayal. Which is why, at this point, the palace information gatherers step in. These operatives don't treat gossip as chatter, they treat it as intelligence, scanning every whisper like it could topple crowns. By dawn, Camilla's bold suggestion isn't just a whisper over lunch, it's inked into private palace memos, cross-referenced against dusty legal notes on succession norms. Not explosive yet, but documented. And documentation in the royal machine is dangerous. It's the kind of paper trail that could resurface years later in a tell-all biography, a bombshell waiting to detonate. Camilla, sharp enough to read the room, doesn't press further. Instead, she pivots to her letters. Insiders say her notes to Laura carry a tone of quiet determination. One line reportedly read, "We'll find our way." The subtext couldn't be clearer. This battle isn't lost, it's just on pause. Meanwhile, Charles retreats into his study, surrounded by watercolours of fading estates and memories of gardens no one tends anymore. He doesn't call Camilla, he calls Anne, because when the stakes touch legacy, Anne is the one who knows the cost of every concession. Fast forward a day or two, and the palace hums with its peculiar rhythm of discretion. No alarms, no headlines, just the machinery of monarchy moving with a silent intensity. Charles isn't impulsive. He never has been. He's the planner, the man who drafts organic garden layouts while the world burns outside. But this decision cuts too close. It tangles with his regrets, his second chances, and the image he spent decades reshaping. So he dials Anne. She answers from Gatcombe Park, breathless, perhaps just back from the stables, boots still dusted with earth. Their bond is shorthand, forged in childhood rebellions and the shared weight of living under Elizabeth's towering shadow. This reads like a razor-sharp exchange between Charles and Anne, where his private conflict is being dissected with Anne's trademark bluntness. A few things stand out in what you've written. Anne's role. She feels like the strategist here, cutting past sentiment to expose the risks, legal, political, and personal. It gives her a voice of both pragmatism and loyalty. Charles's conflict, his willingness to even bring this up, shows how torn he is between Camilla's emotional appeals and the weight of tradition and responsibility. The stakes, you've layered them effectively. The legal angle, wills, audits, parliament scrutiny, grounds it in tangible risk. The political angle, duchy controversies, public money optics, reminds us the monarchy doesn't move in private. And the familial angle, William's fragile loyalty, makes it personal, even volatile. Anne's consent to the no. The phrasing is powerful. It's not just refusal, it's refusal with legitimacy, echoing Elizabeth's style. Pragmatic, unsentimental, and wrapped in a sense of duty. That's devastating for Camilla because it feels like the institution itself closing ranks. Charles's method of rejection, having an aide handle the communication, feels so in character. It's bureaucratic, clinical, and yet protective. He shields himself from the emotional blowback while still upholding the institution's line. Bureaucratic armor is a sharp image. Camilla's reaction, the detail about the trademark laugh masking the sting, is perfect. You can feel how she's bleeding beneath the surface, her pauses, her sharper tone, yet she refuses to give the press or staff anything quotable. This makes her human without reducing her to a victim. Laura's late-night call, beautifully understated, that maternal reassurance, it was worth asking, gives the whole moment its poignancy. It's not a royal command, it's just a mother confiding in her daughter. It grounds the story, crystallizes the divide. Perfect phrase. It frames Camilla versus Anne not just as a disagreement, but as two competing models of monarchy. Camilla's patchwork warmth versus Anne's steel spine. That binary will resonate through the whole narrative. The subtle shifts, holiday cards, seating at gatherings, Catherine's team reading the room. These are such believable, almost invisible indicators of palace politics. It feels authentic because these families communicate through symbols as much as words. The zoom out. You're threading this private episode into the broader state of the monarchy, a fragile Charles, a world-weary public, and a Camilla whose influence has shifted from scandal to quiet stabilizer. It reframes her request not as selfish, but as part of her larger role in Charles's reign. Historians may one day point to this as the first visible fissure in Charles's reign, less about inheritance, more about the question of what kind of monarchy Britain was prepared to accept after Elizabeth, pragmatic and impenetrable, or humane and adaptive. Catherine equals seamless bridge between commoner and crown, a stabilizer whose approval ratings insulate the monarchy. Laura equals the symbol of Camilla's vindication, carrying Parker Bowles' resilience into the halls that once ridiculed them. That juxtaposition is where the real drama sits. It's not just about who gets what, it's about whose story defines the monarchy's future. A few ways you could sharpen and expand this passage if you'd like. Ghosts of Diana. You touched on it, but could push further. The inheritance debate is less about money, more about reopening the old question of whether Camilla's branch is ever truly legitimate. The scar tissue idea is strong. Maybe note how even decades later, the monarchy bleeds a little when tested in these ways. The optics game. Catherine's 80% buffer versus Camilla's ceiling is huge. You might highlight how palace courtiers think in those metrics almost like politicians. Every decision weighed against polls and headlines. Future-facing lens. This moment could be framed as a battle of successors in perception. Catherine as future Queen Mother figure, Laura as the test of how far the monarchy can stretch to include outsider blood. Something like, the divide was never just about estates or wills, it was about legitimacy in an institution obsessed with optics. Catherine embodied the monarchy's survival plan, polished, popular, rooted in a story the public embraced. Laura embodied Camilla's survival story, gritty, enduring, but forever shadowed by suspicion. The monarchy could barely carry both. Anne's gravitas. You've nailed how she embodies continuity. Stripping back royals is acceptable, but money lines are sacred. Camilla's pivot. Instead of sulking publicly, she tightens her orbit and leverages Laura's credibility in literacy work. That's clever, because it shows she's pragmatic, not reckless. William's posture, him filing it away amid Kate's treatments, gives him quiet strength and keeps him untarnished by this squabble. To sharpen this even more, you could underline Anne's role as compass. Her protect the core, adapt the edges advice almost sounds like a Windsor doctrine, could be portrayed as a line that echoes through future decisions. Show Camilla's quiet resistance. The way she doubles down on her causes might be framed as her rewriting legacy through influence, not inheritance. Almost like, if Laura won't be in the will, she'll be in the institutions. Elevate William's rising star. The passage hints at it, but you could push. With Charles weighed down by compromise, William becomes the default center of gravity, the one everyone looks toward as the steady hand you mentioned, almost like the monarchy's balance had shifted again, not in decrees or headlines, but in silences. Anne had tightened the circle, Charles had preserved the line, and Camilla had retreated into her own kingdom of causes. In that vacuum, William's star rose higher, not because he sought it, but because stability demanded it. Lean into the symbolism of retreat. Ray Mill isn't just a house, it's the reminder of her independence, her life before and beyond Charles. Her going there after rejection says, I can exist without the crown's permission. Make Anne's shadow heavier. Right now it's present, but you could frame Anne as the gatekeeper of legacy, almost like Camilla wasn't really rejected by Charles. She was blocked by the institution personified in his sister. Deepen Laura's role here. The letters with art clippings could double as coded encouragement. You'll have your legacy, just not through the estate. That ties Camilla's maternal instincts with her adaptive strategy. Here's one possible tightening of the moment. At Ray Mill, the air is freer, the walls unburdened by portraits of sovereigns past. Here, Camilla can grieve the no in private, but even in solitude, Anne's verdict lingers like a watermark across every page she writes to Laura. The art clippings she encloses aren't idle diversions, they're breadcrumbs, hints at an alternate inheritance, one built in galleries, foundations, and causes that bypass the palace ledger. Frame Charles's note more symbolically. His line, "For all our sakes," could echo his reign's constant tug between love and duty, a reminder that even personal letters become statecraft. Emphasize Catherine's subtle power. Flowers might look small, but in palace optics they're signals of solidarity, painting her as magnanimous, and underscoring why her approval ratings eclipse Camilla's. Lean into the media leak. A story like this doesn't break with fireworks. It's the columns and whispers that gnaw away at authority. A sly sentence about how the Financial Times raised an eyebrow or the Telegraph buried a line in page 7 could show how the fire is stoked without ever naming names. Here's one way to layer it in. The briefings, once purely administrative, now carry a new weight. Solicitors phrase updates with the delicacy of surgeons, knowing even their language might one day be subpoenaed by history. By the time a single line about estate re-evaluations surfaces in the broadsheets, the palace knows the secret has legs. Not a scandal, not yet, but a current too steady to ignore. So there you have it. What began as a private lunch turned into a case study in monarchy's delicate balance. Love versus duty, tradition versus change. Camilla's vision was bold, Charles's refusal measured, Anne's counsel ironclad, and Catherine, the silent victor, her place quietly reinforced. But that's the beauty of Windsor drama. It's never about one decision. It's about how every move echoes across generations, shaping the crown's future in whispers more than proclamations. Was Camilla ahead of her time, or was Charles right to protect the structure? Did Anne safeguard the crown, or cement old walls? And Catherine, does her steadiness define the monarchy's tomorrow more than any speech could? I want to hear your take. Do you think this inheritance saga signals the monarchy bending toward blended families, or doubling down on tradition? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist in this royal story. Because trust me, the crown's greatest secrets are always hiding in plain sight.